Welcome back to Kubernetes Deep Dive. This is chapter 3, and I'm genuinely excited about this one because this is the chapter where everything starts to feel real. In chapter 2, we explored the architecture of Kubernetes. We talked about the control plane, worker nodes, etcd, the API server, all those components working together behind the scenes. That was important foundational knowledge, but let's be honest, it was pretty theoretical. Today we get our hands dirty. By the end of this chapter, you will have written your first Kubernetes deployment from scratch. You'll have a real application running in your cluster, and more importantly, you'll understand exactly why it's running and how Kubernetes keeps it alive. This is where it clicks for most people. Seriously, I've taught Kubernetes to hundreds of developers, and this is usually the moment where someone says, "Oh, now I get it." So let's make that happen for you. Here's what we're covering: pods and why we don't create them directly, deployments and why they're your new best friend, YAML syntax for Kubernetes, labels and selectors, replica sets, and the difference between kubectl apply and create. Let's dive in. Before we touch any code, I want you to think about restaurant franchises. Imagine you're opening a burger restaurant. You have two options. Option 1, you personally hire every single employee. You train them. When someone quits, you're the one scrambling to find a replacement. When you want to open a second location, you do everything from scratch again. You're managing every detail yourself. Option 2, you buy into a franchise system. You tell the franchise, I want 3 locations serving this menu. The franchise handles the hiring, the training, and when an employee quits, they automatically find a replacement. All locations serve the same food, maintain the same standards, and you just declared what you wanted and the system maintains it. This is exactly the difference between creating pods directly versus using deployments in Kubernetes. Pods are like individual employees. They can do the work, but if they quit, if they crash, they're just gone. Nobody automatically replaces them. Deployments are like the franchise agreement. You declare, I want 3 replicas of this application running. Kubernetes handles the rest. If a pod crashes, Kubernetes spins up a new one. If you want to scale to 10 replicas, you change one number. The system maintains your desired state. This is the heart of Kubernetes philosophy: declarative configuration. You declare what you want, not how to achieve it step by step. Pods, the smallest deployable unit. Let's get technical for a moment. A pod is the smallest thing Kubernetes can deploy. It's a wrapper around one or more containers that share networking and storage. Now, here's a key point: most of the time, a pod contains just one container. The multi container pod pattern exists for specific use cases like sidecar containers, but don't worry about that yet. For now, think one pod, one container, one instance of your application. When a pod starts, it gets its own IP address inside the cluster. Containers inside the same pod can talk to each other on localhost. The pod lives on one node, runs your container, and that's it. Here's the thing though: pods are ephemeral. That's a fancy word meaning they're temporary. They're designed to be disposable. A pod can die for many reasons. The node crashes, the container runs out of memory, Kubernetes needs to reschedule it somewhere else. When a pod dies, it's gone. It doesn't come back. Its IP address is released. Any data not stored in persistent storage disappears. This is why we almost never create pods directly. Enter the deployment A. Deployment is a higher level resource that manages pods for you. When you create a deployment, you're telling Kubernetes, here's my application, here's the container image. I want this many replicas running at all times. Now make it happen and keep it that way. Kubernetes takes that declaration and constantly works to make reality match your desired state. If a pod crashes, the deployment notices and creates a new one. If you change the number of replicas, it scales up or down. If you update the container image, it rolls out the change gradually. This self healing behavior is huge. In traditional infrastructure, you'd need monitoring systems, alerting, manual intervention, or custom scripts to restart services. With deployments, recovery is automatic and built in. Labels and selectors. The name tag system. Here's something that confused me when I was learning Kubernetes. How does a deployment know which pods belong to it? The answer is labels and selectors. Think back to our restaurant analogy. Imagine every employee wears a name tag, but not just with their name, with their role, department, and shift. A manager can quickly find all kitchen staff by looking for tags that say department kitchen. They can find everyone on the morning shift by looking for shift morning. Labels in Kubernetes work the same way. They're key value pairs you attach to resources. A pod might have labels like app nginx and environment production. Selectors are how other resources find things with matching labels. Your deployment has a selector that says find all pods with the label app nginx. That's how it tracks the pods it's responsible for. This is a loose coupling design. The deployment doesn't have a hard coded list of pod names, it just knows to look for pods with specific labels. This makes the system flexible and resilient. Replica sets, the middle manager. I need to mention one more resource, the replica set. When you create a deployment, it doesn't directly create pods. Instead, it creates a replica set, and the replica set creates the pods. Think of the replica set as a middle manager. The deployment says, I want 3 replicas running version 2 of my app. The replica set's job is to make sure exactly 3 pods exist with that specification. Why this extra layer? It's about managing updates. When you change your deployment, Kubernetes creates a new replica set for the new version and gradually scales it up while scaling down the old one. This enables rolling updates with zero downtime. You'll rarely interact with replica sets directly, just know they exist behind the scenes doing the actual work of maintaining pod counts. All right, let's write some code. Or rather, let's write some YAML. YAML is how we define resources in Kubernetes. It stands for YAML Ain't Markup Language. Yes, it's a recursive acronym. Programmers love those. The key thing about YAML is that indentation matters. It uses spaces, not tabs, to define structure. Two spaces is standard for Kubernetes manifests. If you've worked with JSON, YAML is similar but more human readable. Instead of curly braces and quotes everywhere, you use indentation and dashes. On screen now, you can see a simple YAML example. Notice how nested items are indented under their parents, and lists use dashes. Pause here if you want to study the structure. The most common YAML mistake? Incorrect indentation. We'll intentionally break this later so you can see what the errors look like. Anatomy of a deployment manifest. Every Kubernetes resource follows a similar structure. Let's break down a deployment manifest piece by piece. First, we have the API version. This tells Kubernetes which API to use. For deployments, it's apps/v1. Different resources use different API versions. Don't worry about memorizing them, you'll learn the common ones through practice. Next is kind. This simply states what type of resource we're creating. In our case, deployment. Then comes metadata. This is information about the resource itself, its name, and any labels you want to attach to the deployment resource. Finally, the spec section. This is where the real configuration lives. For a deployment, the spec includes how many replicas you want, the selector to match pods, and a template describing what each pod should look like. The pod template itself has its own metadata and spec. The pod spec defines the containers to run, including the image, ports, and any environment variables. On screen now is a complete deployment manifest. Take a moment to see how these pieces fit together. The structure flows from the deployment to the pod template to the container specification, writing your first deployment. Let's build this from scratch together. Open your terminal and your favorite text editor, create a new file called My First Deployment YAML, and let's build it section by section. We start by declaring this is a deployment using the apps/v1 API. Then we give it a name in the metadata section. I'm calling mine nginx deployment since we'll deploy the nginx web server. For the spec, we first declare we want 1 replica. We'll start small and scale up later. The selector needs to match labels on our pods. I'm using app-fetch nginx as my label. Then we define the pod template, which includes matching labels and the container specification. For the container, we specify the nginx image. I'm using nginx version 1.24. To be explicit about the version, you generally want to avoid using latest in production. We'll expose port 80 since that's where nginx listens. The complete YAML is on screen now. Pause and type this out yourself. Don't copy paste. The muscle memory helps. Deploying with kubectl. Now let's deploy this. Make sure your terminal is in the directory with your YAML file. We'll use kubectl apply with the -f flag pointing to our file. The apply command is declarative. It says make the cluster look like this file describes. Run the command and you should see a message that the deployment was created. Let's verify it worked. Run kubectl, get deployments. You should see your Nginx deployment listed, showing desired, current, and available replica counts. It might take a few seconds for the available count to show one. Now let's see the pod that was created. Run kubectl get pods. You'll see a pod with a name starting with Nginx deployment followed by some random characters. That random string is generated by the replica set to ensure unique names. To see more details, use kubectl describe deployment followed by the deployment name. This shows you everything: the selector, replicas, the pod template, and recent events. The events section at the bottom is super helpful for debugging, scaling your deployment. Here's where the magic happens. Let's scale from one replica to three. You have two options. You can edit your YAML file and change replicas to three, then run kubectl apply again. Or you can use the imperative command kubectl scale deployment Nginx deployment with the replicas flag set to 3. I'll use the command line method for speed, but in production you typically update the YAML file to keep your configuration in sync. Run the scale command, then immediately run kubectl get pods. You'll see Kubernetes spinning up additional pods. Within seconds, you should have 3 pods running, all managed by your single deployment. Let's test the self-healing. Delete one of the pods manually using kubectl delete pod, followed by one of the pod names. Now quickly run kubectl get pods again. You'll see that the pod you deleted is terminating, but a new one is already being created. The deployment detected that reality didn't match the desired state and immediately corrected it. This is the power of declarative configuration. You said, I want 3 pods, and Kubernetes maintains that even when you try to break it. Breaking things on purpose, let's make some intentional mistakes so you can recognize error messages. First, open your YAML file and mess up the indentation. Put the containers key at the wrong level, maybe line it up with spec instead of nesting it properly. Try to apply this broken file. You'll get an error about invalid syntax or unexpected fields. The error message tells you the line number and what went wrong. Kubernetes YAML errors can be cryptic at first, but they always point you toward the problem. Fix the indentation, but now change kind deployment to kind deployment, a typo, apply again. This time you'll get an error about an unknown resource type. One more. Fix the kind, but change the image to something that doesn't exist, like engine fake fake fake. Apply this, and the YAML will be accepted. But run kubectl get pods, and you'll see the pod stuck in image pullback off status. Run kubectl describe pod on that pod and scroll to the events. You'll see the error, failed to pull image. This is a runtime error rather than a syntax error. The YAML was valid, but the instruction couldn't be executed. These debugging skills will save you hours of frustration. Let's talk about how this works in the real world. Every major tech company running Kubernetes uses deployments as their primary workload management tool. At companies like Spotify, Airbnb, and Pinterest, deployments manage thousands of application instances across massive clusters. Consider a typical web application architecture. You might have a front end deployment running 10 replicas of your React application. Behind that, an API deployment with 20 replicas handling business logic. Then database connections, caching layers, background workers, each managed by its own deployment. When traffic spikes, say you're featured on a news site, you scale up replicas. Kubernetes distributes them across available nodes automatically. When traffic drops, you scale down and free those resources for other workloads. Rolling updates in action. Here's a scenario that happens constantly in production: deploying a new version. You have version 1.0 of your application running across 10 paths. You've built version 1.1 with bug fixes. In the old days, you might take the site down for maintenance or carefully stop and start servers one by one. With a deployment, you update the image tag in your YAML and apply it. Kubernetes performs a rolling update automatically. It creates a new replica set, starts pods with version 1.1, waits for them to be healthy, then gradually terminates version 1.0 pods. At no point does your total capacity drop significantly. Users experience zero downtime. If version 1.1 has a critical bug, you can roll back with a single command, and Kubernetes reverts to the previous replica set. Companies like Netflix deploy code thousands of times per day using exactly this pattern. Labels in complex environment. Remember labels and selectors? In real environments, they become essential for organization. A typical labeling scheme might include the application name, the environment like production or staging, the team that owns it, and the version. You might have labels for cost tracking, compliance requirements, or feature flags. These labels power everything from monitoring dashboards to cost allocation. When finance asks how much are we spending on the payments team's production workloads, labels make that query possible. All right, let's recap what we learned today. First, always use deployments instead of naked pods. Pods are ephemeral, they can die at any moment and won't come back. Deployments give you self healing, easy scaling, and controlled updates. Any production workload should be managed by a deployment. Second, Kubernetes is declarative. You describe what you want in YAML, and Kubernetes figures out how to make it happen and keep it that way. This is fundamentally different from imperative scripting, where you specify each step. The declarative model is more resilient and easier to version control. Third, labels and selectors are how Kubernetes connects resources. They're the glue that lets deployments find their pods, services route traffic, and operators query their infrastructure. Good labeling conventions will make your life dramatically easier as your clusters grow. In Chapter 4, we're tackling services and networking because right now you have an application running, but how do other applications find it? How does traffic from the outside world reach your pods? We'll explore cluster IP, node port, and load balancer services. We'll talk about DNS inside Kubernetes and how pod to pod communication actually works. And we'll set up a real ingress to expose your application to the internet. If this chapter was about bringing applications to life, the next chapter is about connecting them to the world. And here's a challenge for you. After this video, create a deployment for a different application. Try the HTTPD Apache image or Redis or Postgres. Practice writing the YAML from memory. Try scaling, breaking things, reading error messages. The more you experiment, the more confident you'll become. Drop a comment below telling me what you deployed and any interesting errors you encountered. I read every comment and I love seeing what you're building. See you in the next one.